Continuing on and to our next topic and touching on SIG again, unfortunately, LFD Research has continued their work and it has more P320s on hand to do research on. So we'll be expecting a video from them in relatively short order discussing some of the new findings that they have. In the video that they recently released, they do suggest that there might be changes on some of the newer model pistols that address the unintended discharge issue or make it much more, if not impossible, to do. Did SIG actually manage to fix this issue but not tell anyone? It wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. And for our second bit of news on SIG, we also have a statement from the SIG Armorer. Now, previously, the SIG Armorer was supposed to be releasing a device or a drop-in replacement to attempt to address the uncommanded discharge issue. Then he released a short video on Instagram saying he had new data come in, and it looks like that new data might have been SIG themselves. What's strange here is in this video, he does make a lot of the same kind of talking points that we saw previously from SIG in their previous defense, talking about light-bearing holsters and things like that, but also the debris and things like that getting into the holster, which is incredibly weird, along with the drop safe issue, which was talked about with SIG and Mac on that video. The concern isn't over the drop safe issue right now. That's kind of doing some hand-wavy things, trying to make it about one thing that's already been solved when the concerns are about a separate issue. Look, I do want to be fair to the SIG Armorer, and maybe I'll take some heat for this, but at the end of the day, you do have to realize the SIG Armorer's business is dependent on SIG. And I do understand him in some ways wanting to go to bat for them. And in the testing that he talks about, I can definitely believe that he wasn't able to reproduce this issue, probably because he had a firearm with the proper parts configuration and doesn't have this inherent problem. Granted, in the whole grand scheme of things, with the sheer number of pistols that are out there, this is a relatively rare issue, but it's still a large enough issue that people have questions about this. And deflecting to things like the drop safe issue or talking about holsters is kind of weird. I don't want to overly heap scorn on someone whose business is dependent specifically on one particular manufacturer and call them out for trying to defend their relatively small business. And I'm just disappointed that the SIG Armorer seems to have changed his tune from, hey, I'm going to try and release something to fix this problem, to now kind of sort of saying he doesn't think it's a thing. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to be unfair to him, but this does look like that, at least externally, that SIG put pressure on him of some kind. And if that really is the case, I really don't blame him. I blame SIG for their actions. And well, it would be reasonable to blame the SIG Armorer a little bit for the statement that he released. I'm far, far, far more upset at SIG's actions for their "it ends today" statement, how they handled that, and now how they are going to the New Hampshire state government and trying to get, and have gotten, immunity from suit in that state. Honestly, the smaller companies that are dependent on SIG and just trying to keep themselves afloat, I think it's much more on SIG's fault if those small companies are trying to come out and say, hey, SIGs are fine. sure, in general, SIGs are fine. It seems to be their more recent pistols, like the P320, that have the issues. Their older firearms are just fine. And again, for the record, I will say I don't want to see SIG crash and burn. I don't want to see them turn into a hollow company that just gets sold off to the lowest bidder or go bankrupt and out of business. I want to see SIG come back from this. But that means they need to get rid of a lot of the upper level leadership and publicly acknowledge these issues. Just, or even just reverse course on things. Have a different tact with people. And I think maybe they can eventually recover. But the longer they stay on this path, the more damage they're ultimately going to do to their brand reputation. And the lost sales would be incredibly difficult to calculate in terms of how much revenue that they are potentially losing because people are losing trust in their brand, especially in a market like the firearms industry where trust is such a valuable commodity. But I don't want to continue belaboring the point about SIG P320s and their particular issues and all of that drama. Let's move on to some other topics.